India's agriculture sector accounts for around 14% of the economy, but for 42% of the total employment. Be it the minimum supply price or Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act or the famous Green Revolution, we have come a long way in the upliftment of this sector. With agtech startups gaining traction in the last decade or so, we can surely say that India's agriculture revolution, or agriculture 4.0 as it is being termed, is being fueled by the rapid use of deep tech solutions across the country. The objective of this dialogue is to create a discussion around this concept prepared and explored by BVSS Bangalore, and also to explore the avenues of improvement in terms of policy making and ensuring conducive environment these startups succeed and thrive. With a brief introduction about the program, I once again welcome each one of you. Like always at BVSS, we begin with our national song, Vande Mataram. I request everyone to fold their hands and cherish the 75 years of Indian independence. Navalji, it's not audible. Navalji? Thank you. Sorry for the technical glitch there, but I think we ended it well, and all is well that ends well. So now moving on to the program. Before we start, I request Shri Naval Bajaj, our beloved president and a man of action, to deliver his presidential address. A chartered accountant by profession, he is a corporate governance, audit and risk management expert. He is also a forensic accountant and a part of the senior management in Yokogawa India Limited, Japanese-based MNC. He has contributed to the standard formation at ICAI for the forensic investigations as well as the internal audit standards. With this brief introduction, over to you, Navalji.
Thank you, Srihari. Thank you for the introduction, and my warm welcome to all the panelists, Chief Guest Professor Ramesh Chandji, our honorable panelists, and all of the esteemed guests in the audience. I welcome you all on behalf of BVSS Bangalore chapter. Today's topic relating to agriculture food technology startups was conceptualized by my colleague Ravi Shankarji, who happens to be an agricultural economist. So I thank him for this idea, because when before he conceptualized this, I never imagined that how much important it is for the finance community to know about what is happening in this space, because we all keep on talking about the fintech revolution. We talk about other technology companies, startups revolutionizing the other sectors. But when you actually start reading about agriculture sector, the technology companies are really contributing a lot towards the enhancement of the economy, of the income that is getting generated. And of course, the finance professionals associated with BVSS also need to understand this so that they can also see the professional opportunities accordingly. Just India saw a sharp growth in the agriculture industry using these advanced technologies to increase the productivity, reduce costs, and help farmers. This is the potential of basically changing the face of the Indian agriculture sector. So anyways, we have esteemed guests who are going to talk about this topic in much detail going forward. So I would not like to spend too much time on that. But considering that I'm the president of the Bangalore chapter, my duty is to share with all of you who have joined this program for the first time, to share about BVSS activities in Bangalore chapter. We are doing, 5 themes are there for BVSS Bangalore chapter activities. The first theme is the thought leadership and advocacy on economic policy, which we do under the aegis of BVSS Economic Think Tank, where we talk about issues and opportunities for startups, for MSMEs, for global supply chain, real estate sector, issues and opportunities for Karnataka and other parts of India. The second theme where our chapter is working right now is thought leadership and advocacy on corporate governance, where we have formed Board of Directors Club, CXOs Club, where more than 100 CFOs have already joined our club, Auditors Club, Company Secretaries Club, Compliance Heads Group, and then Investors Club. Then third theme is under the BVSS Bangalore Members Club, where we keep on bringing up the latest issues which are faced by the finance professionals. Fourth one is finance literacy, where we have 3 sub-themes. One is finance for non-finance, for policymakers and journalists. Another one for the key decision makers, and then the investor education. And last but not the least, on the social side, we have BVSS Nation First program and BVSS Women Inspiration program, where we do a lot of interviews for leading women leaders. And then we are, circulating those life lessons to the audience at large. So I would like to welcome all of you once again and request all of you to join hands with us. We need more hands, we need more minds. And we will, welcome you into the BVSS family to take things further forward. With these few words, I would like to give it back to Srihari. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, I hand over the session to Dr. Ravi Shankar to take it forward. He is the convener, and like how Navalji mentioned, he is the brain behind today's program. Dr. Ravi Shankar is an entrepreneur, mentor, and investor in the Agfood tech and rural impact startup ecosystem. Currently a visiting professor and also a leading business in leading business institutes in India and abroad. He specializes in teaching artificial intelligence in business adoption, computer vision, and deep learning. He also consults and drives data science-driven digital transformation initiatives at Fortune 1000 firms. He has over 3 decades of experience at the intersection of agricultural policy and data analytics. He is also involved in fostering FPOs and driving innovation and technology adoption in the Indian agricultural community across Agfood value systems. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, Ravi Shankar ji. Kindly take it forward.
Thank you, Srihari. And thanks, Naval, for providing the background and what BVSS is all about. Again, on behalf of BVSS and my own behalf, I would like to kind of welcome the chief guest, the eminent Honorable Professor Ramesh Chandji, all the key speakers and the participants in the webinar. In fact, I'm quite fortunate today that I have 2 teachers, my teachers. One is Professor Ramesh Chand, he's been a teacher, and also Professor Changappa, who will be joining very shortly. We have essentially a very marquee panel and, with very sharp, but most importantly, very relevant minds on the topic, despite the busy schedule with all the official engagements, Professor Ramesh Chand, Professor Changappa, and everybody else have kindly agreed to spare the time to make this the first of its kind agri-tech or agri-related topic within the BVSS forum. For this, I should really again thank Naval for kind of goading me and pushing me really to sort of put pen to paper and make this happen. Thanks to you, Naval, again. And the way the panel has been designed, it is deliberate in the sense that we have a good representation of various stakeholders, right from policymakers like Professor Ramesh Chand, Dr. Changappa, Professor Alur, etc., to entrepreneurs like Satkumar Tomar, and there are quite a few, and investors, right from Emmanuel to Hemendra will be joining a little later, and folks like Abhishek who are part of the banking system, etc., right? So that's the way the panel has been designed. The background note, which is part of the PDF document, kind of was penned in a way to set the agenda and the tone for today's webinar. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the 9 discussion points that is there in the note. And with this, I want to set the ball rolling with 3 to 4 key points that I think are critical to today's webinar. We know that the road to the $5 trillion economy is through the villages. So it's a rural road to the $5 trillion economy that the nation is aspiring to sort of strive towards. One. B, I feel the agri-tech sector, right, the Agfood tech sector, currently it's around 1,500, give or take 100, depends on which agency is estimating the number of agri-tech startups. We have 1,500 startups, agri-tech startups. In the last 9 months or so, 7 to 9 months of this year, the agri-tech startup has attracted $1.5 billion, which is 6x of the time, the volume of investment that was attracted in the last year. And if you just do a comparison between 2014 to 2020, only I think 400 million was what was attracted. So there's a huge leapfrogging in terms of investment. The sector is pregnant with potential, and by 2025, the agri-tech startups are estimated to kind of book in around $25 billion by terms of revenue. So these are large numbers, and I think this will all contribute towards the $5 trillion goal. And this have agri-tech startups have a multiplier effect, and they have a transformative power. I believe that they can act as a catalyst in this overarching goal. And finally, I believe that the agriculture sector is too vast and complex for any one stakeholder to solve the problem. So the PPP mode is very critical. And within that, I think agri-tech startups, I'm a great believer in startups because they solve a real problem, and they're driven mostly by young, energetic folks. With this, I would like to hand it over to our chief guest today, Professor Ramesh Chand, a very eminent agriculture economist, my former teacher, currently a member of Niti Aayog, and he's one of the sharpest in the business when it comes to agriculture economics in general. And he does a host of things. With this, I'll hand it over to Professor Ramesh Chand. Shreyari, is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi Shankar, Bajaj Sahab, and other participants. I am really very happy to participate in today's webinar, and there are several reasons for it. The foremost reason is that my most beloved student is now involved in this startup. In fact, he is the best example of startup in life. He has changed his area of work so many times, and that too wherever he went, he just did exceedingly well. I feel that itself is a great inspiration to take up new ventures like startup. The second is that the rising interest of accountants, bodies of accountants in agriculture. Before your event, other day, there were another body of accountants which wanted me to speak in their function in Ahmedabad. So I feel that with the involvement of accountant, agriculture will also have a better sense of commercialization and better sense of what goes in and what comes out. That in agriculture, we will have some precise idea of profitability return to society, and those kind of things. The third reason why I feel happy is I feel startups are future of agriculture. I'm not saying so in today's webinar. I've said this thing in a couple of my interviews in newspaper articles, on TV also, that we have to move toward higher involvement of private sector in agriculture to take agriculture to next stage of development. And startup are a very important vehicle of participation of private sector in agriculture. So in next 10 minutes or so, I will share with you some thought which may look to be a bit random, and that is because I thought this seminar is tomorrow, but then Ravish suddenly reminded me 30 minutes back. I really feel sad that he called me, I think, around noon also, maybe 11 or so, but I did not pick up his call because I was traveling. So, but anyway, all is well that goes well. For the first time, put these views, which I am going to share with you today, in a similar event organized by Sumunati. It was 3 years back on 15th August. So they just want it to be the day when they are starting this startup related activities in a big way. So they asked me to speak, and later on they published also on their site. Why I said that future belongs to startup, I say so for again 2-3 reasons. That one reason, of course, is that this realization that role of public sector and role of private sector over time undergo changes. So we are not in 60s, we are not in 70s that our private sector is weak and we can't grow. So that is one reason, realization that we really require animalistic to private sector if we really want agriculture sector to grow. The empirical support behind that is, there is one figure published in the report of 15th Finance Commission, where I was one of the members, where I proved that higher the public intervention in a segment of agriculture and higher the support by public sector for a segment of agriculture, lower is the growth rate of that segment of agriculture. Best example is that you find that maximum intervention and maximum support is for rice wheat. The growth rate of rice and wheat in this country is only 1.5%. The minimum is in case of fishery. No MSP, even credit card recently government is announcing, and the growth rate during last 10 years is 8%. So in between also you will see this kind of pattern that as the public interference in the segment and public support for the segment declines, the growth rate increases. So that clearly indicates that there is some role for the private sector, and we need to harness that role. And second is that in terms of innovation, again, I said this in a couple of forums, including some talk in ICR, that next technological revolution in agriculture will come from technologies which are generated outside agriculture, not which are generated within agriculture. Agriculture has to take those technologies if they want to keep themselves relevant. Otherwise, you will see whether you talk of drone, whether you talk of precision farming, GPS application, nano, all those things are coming from outside agriculture. They are not originating in agriculture. That doesn't mean a role of public sector will not be there, but that simply means that we need to recalibrate a role of public sector. But nature of these technologies, nature of commerce, all those things, the way it is changing, it necessitates that we pay attention to enhancing role of private sector and enhancing role of startup. Now coming to startup, what I have noticed, couple of startups keep coming to me, keep meeting me. I never say no to them because I want that more and more startups should be in this sector. The major weakness of the startup sector is that they will have very good person in business, in terms of knowledge of markets, in terms of risk assessment, but in most cases, the technical expertise in the startup is missing. So that's where the need for a person like Dr. Ravi Shankar and those who have studied agriculture, but who are very poor in terms of knowing market, in terms of prices, demand side factors. So I feel that in most of the startup, you will just find that people with the background information of sector, those who understand the sector, but will go best in particular kind of sector. So that is one factor I feel to be which we need to pay attention. Second is that when we talk of startup, we should clearly first classify typologies of agriculture and then see what kind of startup will fit in which kind of typologies. Broadly, we have three kind of typology. There can be many ways to define these typologies. This is one way just for illustration. One is that area of the country which is quite advanced in agriculture, where green revolution technology is adopted on every inch of the land. So what we do there, you require different kind of role of startups. And I just give you one example that the states which have highest productivity of rice and wheat are not having highest productivity in agriculture. You compare productivity of Punjab and Haryana with productivity per hectare, crop productivity per hectare in Andhra Pradesh, in West Bengal and Himachal Pradesh. You will find that these three states are not only having higher productivity than Punjab and Haryana, they are also growing at a higher rate than Punjab and Haryana. So this has one set of message that the region where green revolution technology has been saturated, it is plateauing, there you require a role of startup for diversification. So I delivered a seminar to Gurdev Khush Foundation in PAU few days back. So I gave this message to them that yes, you are top in terms of productivity of rice and wheat, but you are not at the top in terms of productivity per hectare. And reason is very simple, that you are growing so, which at one time were high value crop, which have now become low value crop. You have better crops, which are 2 times, 3 times more productive than what is productivity of rice and wheat. And that is the reason that productivity of West Bengal is higher than Punjab. Lot of potato and other vegetables. And Andhra is much higher. So many things that itself is a complete lecture. But that is one set of typology for intervention by startups. Then we have second set of typology like Eastern India, where we are calling that BGRI program, Bring a Green Revolution to Eastern India, which right now is growing at more than 3%, in some cases 4% also. I think that is the area where the growth rate easily can be accelerated. Otherwise, they will take quite long. And in those states, there is a lot of excitement to accelerate the growth rate. The examples are Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, like that. That is the second set of typology. Third is still the area where green revolution technology has still not reached. So there, startup need to play different kind of role. This is one way of identifying typology, and then accordingly see what kind of startup will fit in which areas. Overall, I feel that for agriculture sector, because this is what I read in your write-up, that how to make agriculture startup ecosystem more effective. What are opportunities for startup? I think the startup for agri startup in India, whether you take macro picture or you take meso picture or you take micro picture, is that you identify what are your strengths, and what are the challenges and opportunities in that area or in the country, then map the two. Once you start mapping the two, you will start getting the answer that this is how you need to go ahead with this. So now let me come to, not enough time to say what are the challenge. Most of us know what are challenge in case of agriculture. Now, biggest challenge to my mind is efficiency. In the past, we had just emphasized grow more, grow more, grow more. So at what cost we are growing more? We never looked at that because we were in scarcity. That is the approach which is justified during the time of scarcity and shortages. But now we have reached an era of surpluses. So again, at some places I have said it, that whatever is the growth of Indian agriculture in next 10 years, 25 to 30% of that incremental output has to be sold in overseas market. And we can't do that if we are not efficient, if we are not price competitive. And we are not going to have the price situation which is prevailing now because of Ukraine-Russia crisis. So you will just find that things will be back to normal in terms of international prices. So if our sugar price is 30% higher than what is international price, if our wheat price by 25% higher, so how we export that? So I feel that efficiency, very, very important. Income of farmer, very, very important. Affordability of consumer, very, very important. Sustainability, climate change, very, very important. So we need to focus on each of these, that these are the future challenges, how we address those. And then we take what are the opportunities. We all know how opportunities are coming. Technology front, you people know it very well. So after that exercise, I think then you go, the biggest mistake which startup and many people are making is that they just look at the situation, farm situation. What are you growing? Rice, we can tell you better way to grow it. What are you growing? Maize, we can tell you better way to grow it. What are you growing? Wheat, we can tell you better way to grow it. Yes, that to my mind come in the second stage. The first stage is whether rice is the best choice for a particular farmer, whether maize is the best choice for a particular farmer. So I feel that you can make a big difference if you advise the farmer what is the best crop to be grown, what is the best production combination, what is the best enterprise mix of livestock, fishery, crop, within crop, what is the best mix, which is generally ignored by the startup. So that will require that you need to have knowledge of what kind of soil, what kind of irrigation, what kind of endowments, and what kind of market is there, what kind of risk farmer can take, what kind of credit will be required, what kind of knowledge will be required. So this first stage has been missed by, I think, all the startups, that you just directly start working on improving what is going on, but not looking at that what is going on, is that the best? Should that be changed? I think it is there that a lot of difference can be made looking at that thing. And second is, of course, input provisioning, that how you can ensure that farmer get quality input and he get it at a lower price. I would say that one kind of startup is by Andhra Pradesh, Raitu Bharosa Kendra. I visited some of the Raitu Bharosa Kendra in Andhra Pradesh. If a farmer wants, he can just come to the Raitu Bharosa Kendra, type on the screen in the local language, or just like we place order on Amazon, that this is the pesticide I need. So Andhra Pradesh government will supply that pesticide, their assured quality is there, and price is generally at least 20% lower than what is the price the person will be required to pay in the market. So this is just example that input provisioning is the second stage, from where best quality seed will come. Seed is carrier of technology. If seed is not good quality, everything is defeated. Subsequently, not much. So like that, input provisioning. Then technical know-how, when to apply what input, how to apply it. We talk about sensor waste. We say don't go for broadcasting of fertilizer, go for leaf chart analysis, whatever. So that is the third stage, that a lot of efficiency can be brought. After that, there is this marketing, and after marketing, this value addition. That marketing is one way, but should a farmer be selling produce as such, or he or she should be selling it after some sort of value additions? Then I feel that Indian agriculture is going to have several patterns, which will be determined by pattern on demand side. We are already seeing this thing in terms of dietary divide, that you find many consumers, they would say, we want organic product. I'm not going into debate whether organic is good or others, but I'm talking of preference of the consumer. So some consumer just want that I want organic products. So if you want to satisfy that kind of demand, you require a particular kind of value chain. You need to then link production with the consumption. Otherwise, the produce will come in bulk. Nobody knows whether it is organic or inorganic, everything getting mixed up. Similarly, demand for customized product. For example, I from last 1 year consuming khapli wheat, and I'm willing to pay a price of 100 rupees per kg for wheat. Though I grow wheat at my farm, I have a farm in Punjab, but I don't consume that wheat for certain reasons. So my preference is for khapli wheat. Similarly, you will find that different consumer, those who can afford, elite consumer, they want particular kind of products. They don't mind even if they have to spend 5 times what they are spending now, because percent of their total expenditure that is going on raw food is not even 0.5%. So I don't mind if it increased to 1.5% or 2%. So that is another kind of area where I feel that startup can make a big difference. The other day, we were discussing, it is a very serious concern that in case of India, per capita food production has increased so much, but improvement in nutrition is not happening. Like if I share number with you from a seminar I delivered in ICSS a few days back, between 70 and 20, it took 50 years for per capita food production to increase by 50%. In 50 years, we increased per capita aggregate food production in the country in 50 years. The next 50% increase happened in just 20 years, 22 years to be precise. Between 2000 and 2021-22, we could achieve 50% increase in per capita production of food. Many reasons for this: some acceleration in food production, deceleration in population, and next 50% increase in per capita production in India. My calculation is going to happen in 18 years. But the improvement in nutrition slowed down with the shortening of period for 50% increase in food production. How we ensure? And it is not happening because one of my fellow members, his member health, he said, because we are increasing more carb. So I showed him data. In India, per capita intake of carb in last 40-50 years has not increased, because per capita intake of cereal is on a decline, and per capita intake of pulses has declined, and pulses and cereal are the two sources of carb. So why this nutrition is not improving? The next question is that we will produce biofortified crop, wheat, bajra, which have higher iron, higher zinc. Yes, you can produce it, but if you are not creating marketing channel which are exclusive, where there is traceability, then how you will expect a consumer to pay a premium price for particular attribute of the produce? I think future is going to move in this direction, that we will have product of mass consumption. We will have products which will satisfy particular consumer, particular kind of thing. That is what can fetch better price to our farmers also, rather than fetching better price to middlemen also. And I think lot of scope for this for the startups there. I think Ravi Shankar, I am getting carried away and taking more time. but you will expect me. Should I conclude or?
No, sir. You can take few minutes and
Okay.
summarize, sir. No issues.
Okay. Thank you. Another area I want to highlight is smallholders. Whatever people may say smallholders are going to stay in India because small farmer have stayed in Asia. Generally, most of our agriculture scientists, they have gone for high degree or postdoctorate in Western countries. So they bring that knowledge that small farmer will vanish, farm will become bigger and bigger. It has never happened in Asia, not even in Japan, which is the advanced capitalist economy. Farm size is Japan is 1/3 or half of what is our farm size. So it is not going to happen even in case of India. So how you make small farmer economically stronger? I would say again, involvement of startup, you make small farmer gardeners like they are there in China. Why productivity of a Chinese farmer is 4 times what is the productivity of our farmer. So if you do that by making a small farmer a gardener, by taking knowledge and capital to him, a 1 acre farmer can earn as much income as a 5 acre farmer. So I see role of startup there. And lastly, larger picture. Globally now, it was PC Timber. I also worked hard during last 3 years. Wherever I get opportunity, I highlighted that world will be required. If they don't act according to required, will be forced to look at agriculture differently. There are so many reasons for this. I just share with you 3. One is irrelevance of Arthur Lewis hypothesis that as an economy advances, people move out of agriculture to industry. Industry is a growing sector, dynamic sector. It will offer all the jobs. Today's industry is not offering jobs. Industry 4.0 is going for roboticization and all those kind of things. Very little growth in employment. So from where job will come? I think world has to look back at agriculture, how we can create decent job in agriculture. Second reason is sustainability. When 80-90% water is consumed in agriculture, India cannot address its water problem if we do not pay attention to water use in agriculture. Third is, of course, climate change, and fourth is efficiency, and fifth is health and food safety. So I feel if we have to address all those things, we have to look back at agriculture. And when we have to look back at agriculture, we can't achieve these things without taking knowledge to agriculture, without taking capital to agriculture, without hand holding of the farmer, and without what you mentioned in your brochure, participation between public, private, and startup. So thank you. My good wishes for discussion today and for future of startup.
Thank you so much, Professor Ravich. And as always, fascinating facts, intellectually very stimulating, right from soil to plate, farm to fork. You have covered all aspects, including diversification. You touched upon small farmers. You also touched upon efficiency. I believe by 2050, the population will hit 9 billion globally. And I think given the geopolitical and the pandemic situation, India can play a very critical role as a global football. And there's a great opportunity for agri-tech startups to not only from the choice of crops till the market linkages, right? So in all spectrum, the entire value spectrum, they have a role to play. Thank you, Professor Chand. Now I see that I have an esteemed and a very illustrious panelist, Professor Changappa, another teacher has joined. Sir, would you want to swap? I know you have a very important governmental meeting coming up. If you want to go first, then I can request Professor Alur to swap. You can go first, then Professor Alur can go. If it is fine with you, Professor Changappa.
You are muted, Changappa Sahab.
Yeah, you need to unmute, sir. Yeah, I'll just call him and tell him.
Raviji, he is not muted, but somehow his voice is not coming.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe he can join back again, I think.
Yeah, I'll ask him to log in and re-log in. So yeah, so now we can, in that time, we can make use of some Professor Alur. Why don't you get started? Professor Allur is the director of Center of Excellence for the Farmer Producer Organization, very illustrious career in agricultural sciences. He was at ICRSAT prior to this. With this, I would welcome Professor Allur. You have like 9 minutes to get your points across to the audience. Thank you, Professor Allur. Over to you.
Thank you, Ravi Shankar ji. Esteemed chief guest, Professor Ramesh Chandji, and all panel members, friends from BVSS, and all interested people who have joined this evening. I will be restricting my talk to building a stronger linkages between agri startups and also FPOs for a better tomorrow. Friends, we are all aware that the primary and persistent problem of the food and agriculture sector in India is the inefficiency, caused due to information asymmetry that exists across different levels. While the buyers and there exists an uncertainty of what quality produce they get for the price that they are paying, and on the farmer's end, they are worried about the prices that they will be getting for the cultivated crops sold by them. Both these insecurities make this entire agri supply chain to be more worried about the supply demand matching at the lowest price, leading to a suboptimal efficiency. The focus should be rather on a predictable and quality-based pricing of the produce. And the question is, how do we achieve this? The popular, recommendations from the agri sector seem to imply that the farmers need a lot of advice to do a basic job of cultivation. However, we always say that the truth is the farmers are the specialists. They have inherited a deep, knowledge and experience from their forefathers. But however, they have little access to resources and safeguards. Food and agri companies, on the other side, are the specialists in converting agri commodities to value-added products for the appropriate consumers, but they do not have any control on the production per se. And there has been very little or practically difficult for them to work directly with the farmers. With both parties skilled in their respective areas, the issues arising during the communication and engagement between these two is that there is a need for bringing a proper linkage between these two actors. Hence, in spite of several policy initiatives, we continue to have low farmer incomes and unmet consumer needs. So when we look at the pain points of these startups, we were discussing with Professor Ravi Shankar in the earlier case that the scaling is not happening for the startups, especially in the agriculture sector. There's a clear missing link between the FPOs and the startups across the country. Maybe very few of them have been able to do it. We have good examples of Ninja Cart, Baycool, AgroStar, Dehat, Stellabs, Vijay, Cropin, things like that. But except those few, 1 or 2 dozen of startups who have been able to make a breakthrough, many of them are still struggling to have a linkage with the FPOs. And there are too many startups which are focusing on the same area. For example, people who are talking only about machine learning, artificial intelligence, mobile solutions, but they have not gone beyond these things. There's a clear lack of thorough understanding among the startups about how they can reach more and more farmers, basically the small and marginal farmers, through FPOs. There's a huge potentiality and scope for these startups to reach maximum number of small and marginal farmers. In many cases, FPOs even look at these startups as their competitors, and many of the FPOs, they look at these startups as the intermediaries. So these taboos are to be removed, and then there is a need for interactions between these two actors. And if you look at the policy front, we don't have a complete data setup available on the agri startups. What are their specializations? What services they can offer to FPOs? We don't have a clear-cut database setup at the national as well as the state level. And also, there are no big efforts being made to see that the technologies are available with these startups. So what technology is available with what startup? That's also very important. Many times, FPOs come and ask us. So we are looking for this technology. Who can help us? So there is a big, gap between these two sectors. And another thing, we don't have any common platform. For example, we don't have any, a digital platform to link startups and FPOs. So I think these are few points that one should basically look at, linking them. And if you look at, both the parties, the FPOs as well as the startups, they are skilled in their areas. the issue arises during the communication. How do we bring an institutional engagement between these two? And if we are able to offer right resources options and create a safety net around what farmer cultivates, and the farmer will be very easily be able to deliver high quality produce. We always talk about the quality of the produce from the farmers. And at the same time, if we are able to enable food and agribusiness companies to establish predictability of quality of supplies, and the agribusinesses will be easily be able to offer best prices for what they procure. So, however, both agri startups and farmers are not specialized in making this happen on their own, given the severity and depth of structural changes. So it's a big puzzle in entire supply chain, and this puzzle has to be broken down into manageable pieces, and then it is to be solved in a very systematic way. So FPOs basically, which are the collectives of farmers, they can come and have a very interesting partnership with the startups, and agri startups can play a very crucial role in filling the void of information asymmetry, both on upstream as well as downstream side, with advent of technology, availability of networks in the remote areas, penetration of smartphones, mobile phones, tablets, cloud-based internet services, remote sensing possibilities. Agri-tech companies, they have a greater opportunity to address concerns in the agriculture sector, especially addressing the difficulties faced by the small farmers. So the policy push towards FPOs, in the recent years, both at the central level as well as at the state level. So it has created a greater opportunities if utilized by the FPOs and the startups. Definitely, the agribusiness companies can make a big way, and India will be a food basket of the world, with farming being very lucrative opportunity to leverage the benefit of aggregation and the FPOs that they can bring. And there's a need to shift the primary focus from entire supply, from a demand supply mapping context to a quality based pricing context. In that regard, agri-tech companies can play a very, very important role. I would like to just throw upon one or two important points. For example, communicating quality. Quality is one important issue, and we have seen many cases wherein a bad quality commodity is sold at a higher price due to scarcity in the market, and in some cases due to oversupply, good quality produce gets sold at a lower price. Agri startups can play a very significant role by making it easy to check and communicate the quality across different key points in the entire supply chain, right from collection centers to the consumers. And in second point, creating a safety net. It's a very important aspect, in order for farmers to produce a high quality in demand crops with the lower risks, and also the higher returns to the farmers. And farmers need to be provided with valuable information and supplies, that range from seed to fertilizers, tools, weather information, insurance, many other things. In that regard, agri-tech companies need to tailor a bucket of services, information, which will be unbiased and which will be easily available to the farmers, through these FPOs. And coming to the last point, where they can really push their things happen, is creating quality, specific supply, lanes. As we have different lanes in the, speed highways, we can also have for different qualities. There can be different procurement groups and companies. Startups can play a very important role. When the farmers go to a traditional buyer and they end up in saying that this has a mix of several qualities, and they use as a weapon to bring down the price of the commodity. With grading, all those sorting and all this facility, startups can help the farmers through FPOs to create a clear-cut supply lanes, and then help all the commodities produced by the farmers based on the grade and quality can be sold at better better price. And if you take at the FPOs are the great concept, but difficult to implement. Many entities, for example, we have KMF Nandini in Karnataka, we have Amul in Gujarat. They have taken several years to come to this level. So what I'm mean to say here is, so the entire food and agriculture supply chain, the inefficiency is because of the valid reasons. And while technology can be a greater enabler, and agri-tech companies need to have a solid grip and strategy around the social infrastructure issues. And this is something that both agri-tech companies and investors need to understand. And at the cost of sounding alarmist, we cannot have a strategy of moving fast and breaking things. It is, we need to adopt an approach, move steady and build things. So this has to happen in agriculture sector, and the startup should have patience to build their bridge. As mentioned by Professor Ramesh Chandji in the beginning, there are a lot of things being discussed. I would like to just highlight few tips to agri startups. They need to make a thorough scan of the top priority needs of the farmers through FPOs, and they should not work only on the felt needs. Many times I keep receiving several inquiries, and people from startup, they come, but they have some pre-decided products and services to be offered to the farmers. So let us guide them, help them, and hold them, and they should scout the existing technological solutions. There are several technological solutions available for that particular problem, and they should look at their limitations. If they can build or improve or that would be good, and there is no point in reinventing the wheel. Many times most of the products and services given by these startups are based on the felt needs. And one important thing they should always keep in mind, the cost effectiveness, easy to adopt by the farmers. As smallholder farmers, they are very hesitant to adopt new technologies and products due to limited purchasing power. So all startups in agriculture sector need to bear this in mind, and then design their product and services. And also they need to, I completely agree with Professor Ramesh Chand's observation that most of the startups, they don't have domain expertise in there. Most of the computer engineers, they are the lead persons in the companies, and many of them, they are devoid of the agricultural domain expertise. There is a need for people to understand the field problems, and they can design a beautiful solution to various problems that are faced by the farmers through FPOs. And there's a huge potential. As of now, we have over 16,000 FPOs across the country. Karnataka itself has 1,200 plus registered FPOs, and we have in several sectors, and we hardly have any startups making a big breakthrough with the partnership with FPOs. And this is a great idea that we should bring startups as well as FPOs on the same platform. With this, the future potential for agri startups in India has an immense scope. While if you are talking about that $10 billion US beyond the journey, and we need to bring this relationship between these two actors, and Government of India and even the state governments like Karnataka, they have been presenting their deep commitment to bring policy reforms in agriculture sector and allied sectors, and to further or to bolster the agri startup ecosystem in the country. And with this, I just conclude, and I thank Dr. Ravi Shankar and the entire team from BVSS for giving me an opportunity. And this is a great idea to link FPOs with startups, and we should make headway, and Karnataka can definitely be a role model in this. We are trying to build the entire database of FPOs in the state of Karnataka, and if a similar effort can be made by somebody else building the database of agri startups, that can go a long way. And I also have one request to the so-called best agri startups in the country. They can be the guiding light for the new startups that are coming up. Karnataka, Banglore itself hosts more than 200 startups in agriculture sector, but we need to guide them, handhold them, and show them the way forward. With this, I stop here, and I look forward to listen to other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Alur, for those incisive thoughts. Actually, Professor Ashok Alur is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to FPOs. I always pick his brains. So I think one effective way to sort of link agri-tech startups to FPOs is to create an institutional framework, or there's information asymmetry. How do we create a platform? Maybe SFAC at the center, somewhere that's the agency which kind of overlooks FPOs, FPCs, but agri-tech startups, we need to institutionally link these two entities. If that's the way we put at it. And also, Professor Alur, one other important thing is there are many problems that agri-tech startups face. One big problem is how to scale, right? How do you crack the code to scale? They come with point solutions. may work for 100, 500, 5,000 farmers. But how do you take to 500,000 farmers? How do you take to 5 million farmers? At one hand, it has to be customized. On the other hand, you need scale at impact. So therefore, I think by effective linkages with FPOs and FPCs, I think we can crack the code. Thank you so much for your insights, Professor Alur. I don't think Dinesh Chauhan is there. If Dinesh, if you are there,
Ravi, I want to get in.
Yeah, please. Why don't you get started? I
Yes.
know that you have to go. I'll request Emmanuel to go after Professor Changappa. Professor Changappa is a state government meeting. But despite that, he has found some time. Sir, over to you. Please get started.
Thank
You
you.
have 9 minutes. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. I'm very happy that I'm able to listen to Ramesh Chand, who was my friend, philosopher, and guide. And I know he is also a farmer. I'm also a farmer like him after my retirement. In fact, he has come to my farm. That's the greatest thing, that's the kind of relationship we have. But he has given a real insight into what is happening to the agricultural food system in this country. Friends, I really compliment the efforts of Bharatiya Vittal Sahakara Samiti for organizing this meeting. And also, I'm aware of the efforts of Dr. Ravi Shankar and Nawal Bajaj. Keep it up. I think this will lead to some, real discussion and, some outcomes. Well, I begin stating that agricultural startups are gateways for innovation to accelerate agricultural production and productivity in the country. And this is has been seen. And my focus would be on what is the kind of mega trends in India, especially in the agri-food system, which the startup should keep in mind. One is, I should say, kudos to the agricultural startups in India. In spite of all the starting trouble, they have made a real good headway. Year on year, we are adding many startups in many areas, and we really find another thing is, it's not only the agriculture scientists or agriculture-based people, even a lot of people from other sectors, especially if you see a lot of IT people getting into this. This is what we really wanted, and the interaction of the farming community with the IT sector, because we know what IT can do. So this is a good step. Well, the agricultural startups, as indicated by Alu, they are providing relevant and innovative solutions to a number of challenges faced across the agri value chains. Well, these startups are leveraging technology, but if you mainly see, most of them, maybe a little kind of bias because we are coming from the IT sector. We find more in the area of market linkages, whether retail, B2B, B2C, this kind. But the technology platforms involving farmers' engagement in education, irrigation, post-harvest management, waste to value, biotechnology, and nowadays use of drones in plant protection, etc., are emerging in a big way. And this is what the startups are showing. And the government is also responding. For example, use of drones, the way the government is responding and providing support is most encouraging. Well, they have used different approaches, and I think, that's noteworthy. Well, friends, I was just said, what are the agri startup should keep? These are the 5 mega trends that are seen in the agri-food system. This should be kept in mind. One is, if you have seen, because India has become a global player also in some of the agricultural commodities. Agri-food as a part of the wellness industry. This is the consumers elsewhere in the world are very conscious of the quality and the safety of the food. Like the pesticide residue, hormonal use, chemicals, etc. So, one philosophy is emerging. Let us pay the farmers, not the pharmacy, because that's the message I give. Let us pay the farmers, not the pharmacy. So please keep this in mind. This is one of the mega trends. The second I would say is the precision farming. If you see world over, a lot of investment is happening in the precision farming and a lot of advantages of precision farming. And very huge investments, in the controlled environment agriculture, vertical farming, indoor farming, hydroponics, aquaponics. But India is certainly lagging behind, and certainly we need a lot of entrepreneurs, in this area, because the future is this kind of farming due to many reasons. So I would say prepare for a tsunami which is going to come in the area of precision farming. Then, of course, the third one I wanted to indicate was the digital supply chains. For example, digitalization is happening not only in the developed world, but also in developing countries. For example, smartphones in the hands of the farmers and the digital tools and blockchain in the hands of the companies. It is bridging the gap. You see now the traceability of the product, which is insisted by the organized retailers all over the world, all the supermarkets all over the world. That has been accomplished, to a greater extent in many parts of the world. Then integration and disintermediation, which will give competitive advantages, also happening because of digitalizing the supply chains. The use of IoT, robotics, GIS are moving towards digital supply chains. For example, I am also a part of the Tata Group. We are digitalizing many of these so that we can get the premium in the market. Then we have a sort of a metaverse, that is combination of virtual and real worlds, that the consumers can interact and and look forward what they really want. Then, of course, you have seen, Dr. Ramesh was mentioning that India is exporting a lot of commodities. Now processed food is also becoming an important component of our exports. We find that the people there are looking for alternatives. For example, people are looking for meat alternatives. This is why I mentioned this is India. We have a lot of opportunities in this area, because the plant-based meat industry, the concern is excess of meat consumption, animal contributing to larger carbon footprint, the cruelty to animals, wellness associated issues, etc. That is why the meat in alternatives. For example, recently we entered into a contract with a huge American firm for the sale of jackfruits, because they want to substitute jackfruit as a substitute for meat. And the people in the US, they are averse, for example, they are using a lot of soya bean, to produce soya meal, etc., and soya tofu, these many products. But one problem is soya is a GM crop. So what I say is there are a lot of opportunities in this area for for this kind of agriculture startups. You have seen one of the agriculture startups in Kerala was worked on this jackfruit. It was identified as the best startup, I think, in 2021. Well, what we are really looking forward is not a plant-based food, but a plant protein. So, our pulses, mushroom, etc. All this will have this has to be kept in mind by the agriculture startup. And of course, the sustainable practices, very important. For example, the carbon footprints. Then, of course, the business has to be use sustainable models of energy, water, waste management, soil management, and the care of animals, etc. These have become the part of the business model. Earlier, in the sustainability was not given so much importance, but now, these sustainable practices cost, but at the same time, now it's fetching premium, but a time will come, it becomes a necessity. Well, friends, the last one I would say is, as agriculture startup, you must adopt market-driven. 2 minutes, Ravi, I'll conclude. Yeah, a market-driven approach. One is understand the market. Most often we make the biggest mistake is we assume the existence of markets. Markets do exist, but the right product, right processes, right practices, and what the consumer really wants, it has to be kept in mind. And also understand the product life cycle. When you are startups, you must be very clear what should be what is your product life cycle. Then is understanding the market potentials, etc. Well, I would say, it's easy to go for a rapid market appraisal, and this rapid market appraisal can be done by yourself. For example, by making field visits, talking to your competitors and others. So what I would say is a rapid market appraisal has to be done by you before really getting into a serious job of production or any other kind of this thing. Well, even the market conduct has to be seen, especially the strategies of selling, buying, pricing, etc. and this has to be done. Well, friends, I would conclude stating that there is a boom time for agriculture startups, but there are problems, mainly in the funding side. And when we say the funding of the technology development, technology commercialization. Here, Dr. Ravi, I want to mention, especially the valuation of the technology has become a key issue. For example, I come out with a gene which is, drought tolerant. It's very difficult to evaluate what is the value of that particular this thing. This has become a big problem because when you go for venture capital, etc., when you look at the valuation, this has become a big issue. But this has to be kept in mind. As indicated by you, the market linkage is very critical. I would say, in the area of finance, etc., more creative models of financing is required, and better incentives, policy support to attract the startups is very important, because you see all these startups are formed in Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai, and many states are lagging. It is not a India-wide movement yet. If you want to make it an India-wide movement, then you will have to, the government has to really come out, the state government, because for other things, state governments claim agriculture is a state subject. The state's governments has to become proactive. Well, I conclude stating that the dialogue discussions of today to develop an action plan to create an optimal environment for agricultural startup is much needed to achieve a evergreen revolution. If you are looking at an evergreen revolution, this is required. I really appreciate the efforts of the agriculture startup. Good luck to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Changappa, very eminent professor of agriculture marketing and also my guru. He's not only a farmer, like he told, but he is one person in the academia that I know from the last 4 decades as a kid that who has been involved with the corporates. He knows the business side of things. He knows the pragmatic, practical side of things, what farmers face. So a lot of words of wisdom, right from precision agriculture to plant protein. You have covered it all, sir. Thank you so much, despite your hectic schedule, for carving out time. I will now request Ajay Kakra, who is the managing part of JU Agritech, to share his thoughts for 3 minutes. Then we'll hand it over to Emmanuel. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you,
sir.
Dr. Ravi. Thanks, Dr. Ravi. I'm audible?
Yes, please continue, Ajay.
So I won't get into the nitty-gritties of the trends and how it has been performing, but I'd like to focus a little more on the practical aspect which the startups face. So I'm into more of funding of early stage agri-tech startups. So they have different kind of pain points which are different from more developed SMEs or corporates. So, talking of areas where they actually have the pain, that would be something in the business model. We all know that startups, they do very well in the home states, but when it comes to expansion into different geographies, into different value chains, that's where they actually struggle. And if the business model is not really strong, they really are not able to work it out. A lot of startups are focusing their business model on looking at, say, if it is input, then to the dealer level. Now the trend has now come that startups after the COVID now probably are looking at directly approaching the farmers, but there is a huge risk going directly to the farmers. I mean, in terms of payments, in terms of credit, in terms of recoveries, a lot of issues are there. So there has to be innovative model which may be something around a closed loop financing, which makes farmers less vulnerable, and even the corporates who are funding the farmers assure of the payments or of the credit which is being given to the farmers. So that's something which will be really helpful. And startups, early stage startups, when they're actually specifically which are they're into, say, agri fintech, those people are also having this issue at the early stage. They need to have backing of financial institutes like banks or NBFCs. But most of them do not touch these early startups. They actually ask for, say, FLDGs or guarantees or other things, which are getting resolved to a certain extent. But yes, these still remains a challenge for a newborn startup. Till the time he is having a lot of fund, he is actually able to generate muscle strength for paying off all these FLDGs and other things. And these may be as high as 40%. The early guys, early stage startups, they have to face this kind of issues, which may reduce down to, say, 10% later on. But initial part is a very tricky and a tough situation for them. Other thing that I am feeling is in terms of say quality as well as documentation. That was also pointed out earlier. But as and when we are looking at global supply chain, so Indian startup which are actually eyeing the global markets, they need to be very specific on the quality as well as on the documentation that is being done. Maybe quality can be done through technology, but yes, documentation of those aspects and also maintaining a clean chain may be done through say blockchains, which are coming up now fast. So from Web 2 to Web 3, that's becoming a very big trend. People who are earlier into ERP are now shifting to blockchain, and that's where the actual value add comes from for the startups. Whether it is financing part or it is supply chains or any other thing, that would be something which the startups may look at, and this is the trend which the corporates might also like to adopt. Giving them interoperability, interaction between different Web 2 and Web 3 systems. That's what is lacking. One ERP cannot interact with another ERP. So that kind of thing needs to be done. Blockchains which can actually work out, interact with different ERPs and Web 2 and Web 3 systems. That would be the need of the hour, and that would actually be very successful in terms of global supply chains that we're looking at. Other thing that we also need to look at is in terms of when you're looking at scale up. So scale up part is where the startups need to be very critical in terms of what kind of business model. So when they start, their business model is a little different, and when they actually try to scale up, they tend to become asset heavy. They tend to spend too much on the marketing part. They tend to have a huge cash burn. And that's where a lot of startups face issues while scale up. Now, business models of the startups that definitely needs to focus on asset light models, even through when they're scaling up, or maybe digital marketing or aspects like digital marketing, which can actually help them have a lower cash burn and also have higher profitability. Now, profitability becomes very important, not the GMVs, which we have been already looking at. The last point that I want to mention here is in terms of data leverage. There's a huge amount of data which is being generated across value chains, across all these startups, and government also knows and is generating a lot of data. But that data, how it is being utilized for the startups, startups has a huge cost for acquiring data. We need to understand that the data acquisition cost is something that kills the startup. Now, if there is a system by which he can actually get publicly shareable data for farmers, for supply chains, for stakeholders, it would substantially reduce his cost and make his models really efficient. And that's where the success of the startup will come. 9 out of 10 startups fail because of a lot of other reasons apart from data and other things. So if we have a lot of startups coming up, but in my opinion, quality of startups is not there. I may not be liked by a lot of the panel members here, but I don't find good quality coming up here. And the quality can only improve if the input data that they're getting improves. And that is the place where all of us needs to come together. It's not only funding of the startup, it is also how well they perform on the ground. And India can actually become a center for global best practices as well as expansion into global markets. Now, with all these war and other volatility of commodities going on in the markets, we do have a option open for global markets. So that's where we can leverage our startup strengths. So I'll hold there. I think.
Thanks, Ajay. I know we are having a time bank. Thanks for those very good inputs, especially how do we de-risk and mitigate the agri-tech startup sector. And also you brought up a very important point, access to data for agri-tech startups. In fact, the central government is currently building a data framework, architecture, at least publicly available data. A lot of data is kind of collected from the state agencies at the central level, right from cost of cultivation to production to market access, etc., etc. There are a lot of data. It needs to be standardized, normalized. It needs to be put in one central database, etc., etc. I believe the central government is taking initiative. But yes, very nice inputs. Thank you, Ajay. With this, I would like to invite Emmanuel Emmanuel is a director at Caspian, senior director at Caspian, is one person. One of the points that came up repeatedly is that agri-tech startups fail because they do not have domain experts. But Emmanuel has been with NABARD, with NDRI, with RBI, before he got into the venture. Now it's a venture debt world. Over to you, Emmanuel. You have 9 minutes, and post your 7 minutes, Abhilash Karan also will speak up. Over to you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Ajay.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And I think I'll talk from a domain experience that we have had as lending to agri startups. So I wouldn't use the word agri-tech. It includes tech and low tech also. We at Caspian Debt over the last 2.5 years have lent to about 31 startups, early stage businesses, first generation entrepreneurs without any securities to offer, and maybe close to 300 crore of credit that has been, and by far we are the largest lenders in this space. So the whole logic of why we are important, or why not we, but debt is important in this space, is because not every business is attractive for VC funding. So VC funders look for scale, fast growth. They have their own reasons why they bet upon some businesses. But there are many others who are doing things which are relevant for the Indian agricultural economy and need to be backed with funding. And that is where initially, of course, we also started with well-capitalized companies where the VC has already put money and we give growth capital for working capital. But we realize there are significantly large number of entrepreneurs still waiting for that check from the equity investor, but whose business is robust and can be grown with debt. And that is where we've done significantly well. Unfortunately, I think as the other speakers have also been saying, we've looked at 200 plus agri startups, but have been able to fund only 30. The reasons are because there are issues with governance in those institutions. There are issues with cash flow stability, assured markets, and then gross margins. So I think all of these have been unaddressed in many cases and therefore are not fundable as such fundamentally. But otherwise, the overall market, as you said, there are 1,600 startups, 100 or 200 or 300 may get equity funding. There would be many more who can be grown with debt financing. The difference between equity and debt financing, again, that we should highlight is that we do a very short-term view of things. So to us, the next installment, if it doesn't come through, hits our books as an NPA for which we have to make a provision, then on which again our rating gets a downgrade. The lender prices his loan higher, and all these impact us. And therefore, we end up also funding the cream of these startups, the best of the best, which isn't probably the right way to do things, the most appropriate way to do things. There are many other who are very relevant to the problems that agriculture faces, which need to get funded and which even we are unable to handle. So what needs to be done, again, in very simple terms, as Dr. Ravi in one of his comments has said, bring down the cost of debt through whatever means. You know, the banking system, if it's able to offer debt to retail customers at 6 to 8%, there is no reason why they cannot also lend to businesses at those kind of rates. Of course, you have to price in risk and take other factors into account. But most of the lending that we do is the failure of the banking system, because startups, even those who have got bank loans, come to us because the banks lend incrementally. If they give 1 crore, next year they'll give 2, but the growth of startups is at a scale where, you know, they would need 5. And since we are VC, we have a background of VC, we understand that growth and we fund the difference, and that is the business that we offer. The other thing that I would say is there needs to be some mechanism to de-risk these finances. So because as I was saying, an NBFC can't take a hit on its books because of defaults and delays, but there needs to be a way to still incentivize or cover that risk. And we do have, I think I must mention that Rabo Foundation for one, other incubators have also provided us guarantees for their pool of companies, which helps us to increase the risk-taking ability for us. And if these can be enhanced, and I think debt requirement in this space is much larger. We are just one player, but we are showing the way. And as we have built, again, the wonderful experiences, if a startup has been able to be disciplined about debt and grown its business, it becomes attractive for a venture capital investor subsequently and grows its business. It also becomes attractive for debt funding in the next rounds and brings down its cost of capital. And that is why the way we are building the ecosystem in a way that is, I think, a long-term benefits will be visible about the work we have done in building these startups. But we are, unlike, again, a VC fund, we have unlimited capabilities. We can fund 6 companies doing the same thing, weather prediction. A VC fund can't do that. And we have...
Yeah, Emmanuel, you got 25 seconds. Sorry
I am done. Thank you. And I think there's a great opportunity in that.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thanks for your wise thoughts and practical ones, Emmanuel. I know you're one person who are very grounded and pragmatic. Thank you. I'd like to invite Hemendra Mathur, who is with Bharat Innovation Fund, a senior partner, and also he comes with heavy banking experience, much like Emmanuel with Rabobank. He's also very with Yes Bank and also involved with FICCI. What do you, Hemendra? I know you have a hard stop at 6:30. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Great. No, thanks very much for this opportunity and great to be part of this panel. All I want to say, I believe there are a lot of entrepreneurs on the call. So my message is for the entrepreneurs only. Clearly, I think AgriTech 2022 is very different from AgriTech 2012. We have evolved, we moved forward. I call it the phase 3 of Indian AgriTech, especially with a lot of models maturing, demonstrating scale, demonstrating GMV, and hats off to the startups who took the bet early when things were very tough in terms of funding, in terms of mentoring, in terms of incubation support. I think a lot has changed for any startup trying to build a model in the sector. The ecosystem is far more evolved, as some of the previous speakers also mentioned, whether it is the number of incubators, accelerators, debt funding, equity funding, Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D. We are seeing a lot of investors at almost all the stages. But I think there are few things which is the need of the hour, especially for a lot of supply chain startups or building farm to fork interventions or direct to farm interventions. I think it's time to demonstrate at least path to profitability and path to listing. I think these are very, very critical factors in my opinion. Scale demonstration is there, which is pretty good, but especially 2022, we've seen a lot of investors becoming a bit circumspect with just top line growth. This term GMV is not valued anymore as it was. And that's what I'm saying. Look at GM, it's gross margin instead of GMV. That demonstration is key. It's possible that it may not come in immediate future, but at least you should have a part to it, right? How can you build sustainable business without double-digit GM? Being a conventional conservative investor, I don't understand. So I think that is extremely important. Secondly, I would also say that the intersection of deep tech and agri-tech is still very, very little. And there's a huge opportunity for creating deep tech startups in the country in agricultural space, especially biotech, nutrition tech, processing tech, infra tech. There are so many white spaces which are available, which kind of evolved in other geographies, but in India, we still have to see significant share of deep tech startups, which I think is critical. because that also creates a lot of value. And fortunately, we have a lot of platforms which is being created by the startups. So for a lot of these deep tech to go to market, the platforms are available, which wasn't the case maybe a few years back. The third point I want to mention, which is also important as an investor, is return on capital employed. The capital efficiency has to improve. We have seen startups spending a lot of money building everything on their own, which I don't think is a wise use of money. This is a sector which needs collaborations and partnership. So as a startup, you should know what is your core. And for anything which is peripheral, I'm not saying peripheral is less important, but for anything which is peripheral, you need to build partnerships. And agri-input e-commerce lending from its own book, we have seen doesn't work because you need a lot of underwriting skills, right? And agri-input e-commerce pivoting to farm to fork, of course, there's a natural pivot, but it needs a very, very different kind of skill set. So how do you build those skill sets with the right use of capital is extremely, extremely important, not just for investor, but you as an entrepreneur, because that is going to count when you hit the public market. Last thing from my side is also it's time that we look at encouraging and building the rural ecosystem which can take agri-tech to farmers. The penetration of agri-tech solutions, of course, there's no scientific study, but these are guess estimates, I would say around 5%. How we take it to 50% to 80%, I think that needs a lot of participation from local communities, which is village level entrepreneur, the NGOs, the FPOs, the universities, the KVK, the district administration. I think that is very, very important. How do, as an agri-tech startup, how do I build those bridges, for the farmers? Because farmer is not going to trust a startup going from Bangalore or Delhi or Hyderabad or Pune to village and say, look, this is the solution. It works, it works wonders. You need someone who's trustworthy within that village ecosystem. And that's where forging these local partnerships is extremely important, where startup need to spend a lot of time. And last but not the least, I think from a public ecosystem perspective, I think you also mentioned about agri-stack. I think there are a lot of interventions which we are going to see in time to come, right? So just be respectful and cognizant of the policy change, which can have an impact on your business model. And this is one sector where policy is going to count a lot, right? So, and fortunately, policy is conducive, especially a lot of state governments taking some very, very proactive steps, and of course the central government also recognizing agri-tech as a growth driver for the sector. So that is going to be a very, very positive. But how do we engage and how do we drive some of this policy changes as a community rather than as individual startup? I think is also going to be key. So yeah, with that, I'll conclude. I know I rushed a bit, but thanks again for this wonderful opportunity. Wish you all the very best and look forward to many such discussions, forums, and participate in those. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hemendra. I know you're just coming off this millet conference somewhere, maybe in Hyderabad, I don't know where, but yes. I really appreciate you taking out time. I thought your laser-like points, as always, very helpful because, you touched upon 3-4 important things. How do you gain the trust of the farmer? That's one thing. How do you organize and gain trust locally? Secondly, thanks for pointing out the positive policy environment and ambience, both at the state and the central government, plus the important mantra for startups, right? Which is profitability and ROC and the white spaces. There's so many subsegments that are waiting to be unleashed. I think thanks for those very incisive insights, Hemendra. Very much appreciated. With this, I would like to invite Abhishek Karn from RBL to share his thoughts quickly for the next 2 to 3 minutes. Thanks, Hemendra. Thank you. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi Shankar. I'll quickly wrap it up. I'll pick up from where Ajay left. I mean, the funding part of startup. So I'll just quickly add 2-3 points here. I mean, the startup universe and the funding by banks has, increased in recent past. So last 5 years before, if I have to talk, it was more like advisory role for the bank. Bank just used to advise on merger acquisition deals. They used to identify startups, and probably they used to get liability business from them. That forex investment coming to the company, they used to channelize them to the bank to get liability. So this has totally changed now. And within the banks, there are units, we call them new economy units, which are totally focused on startups, basically agri startups, and they're trying to lend them also. So the entire gamut of lending to these startups or agri startup is identifying in the balance sheet whether the company or the entity is having, that valuable minimum viable product, and whether this unit economics is working or not. And more from, corporate guarantee backed structures. Now we're coming to commodity pledge backed structures. We're coming to structures with minimum cash margin. And we're also trying to dovetail certain guarantee schemes currently applicable for MSMEs and startups. We're also trying to take some benefit under private sector lending, because startups have now benefit of private sector. Maybe it could be agri startups up to 50 crores, MSME. Even if they're not falling into MSME or agri, they can still get PSL advantage up to 50 crore. So all these incentives and policy of government, which is, trickling down form of PSL circular and the guidelines overall, I think it is helping bank to do the funding. So funding is happening in real way, and banks have moved from advisory role to funding role for sure for a startup. That's a brief point I want to make here.
Thanks, Abhishek. I appreciate the adherence to time, but I think you brought up two important issues. One is how we can help startups from a banking perspective, traditional conventional banking. Under the PSL, we have a scheme up to 50 crores. Can it be collateral free? And then we have another great scheme called as the Agri Infrastructure Fund. Can part of that EIF also be kind of pushed towards agri-tech startups? It requires leap of faith. Bankers, in general, I'm just speculating, but how do we enable bankers to take decisions so that it doesn't come back to haunt them? So, the government needs to create that kind of environment where bankers can take some punt and risk and back some startups. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for your inputs. With this, I will next call upon Satkumar Tomar. Actually, he's an entrepreneur dabbling in satellite imagery very successfully, though. Typically, we should get the entrepreneur first, but we're getting him in the end. But it's a kind of a 360 degree. But Sat, quickly, as an entrepreneur, agri-tech entrepreneur, he's a post-PhD from Institute of Science. And then he has done his postgraduate from Germany, and he has started a satellite imagery company in the last 3 years, very successful, practical, pragmatic, yet path-breaking. I believe satellite imagery is a game changer. With this, Satkumar, I would encourage you to speak for 3 minutes and see what are the wish list of an entrepreneur yet. I mean, what and all you would want, the blue sky and the red sky and the green sky. Over to you, Satkumar.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi sir. Yeah, thank you, BVSS. Due to limitation of time, I'll try to finish in 3 minutes. Many people have said before me. I'll try to reinforce some of the point and add my little knowledge. First thing was about the collaboration part. I have seen let's look at in the R&D part. We are doing R&D with a bit of resources. Then agriculture universities are working, agriculture departments are working in their own ways. Maybe it will be very good if all can come together, and then it can speed up the whatever we are developing in the lab to take it to the farm. Then there was point raised by one professor to work with the FPO. Yes, we need to figure out what's the best way for scaling and other factors also, how we can reach large number of farmers. FPO is one mode, but also we need to look at other players like, or anybody who is working with farmer. Many times they get the bad name, middlemen are creating problem, but I feel they can enable the faster growth. We can reach large number of farmers in limited time working with them. Then also we cannot like Hemendra sir said, one startup cannot do everything by themselves. So we need to work with the companies who bring the complementary technologies. Like we are in the satellite remote sensing, but intensely we don't want to do anything in the drone or in the IoT sensor. We feel it's much better to work with these companies who have developed expertise in this. So this we need to keep in mind. Many times when a startup gets good funding, they want to do everything by themselves. But it's too it's quite questionable to focus on everything. It's very difficult to do that. So I think we need to be focused on our domain and then figure out the partners with whom we can work, and we can develop the more technological solutions, reach more number of farmers. Then the other issue, like Ajay sir also mentioned, and we know the data drought. I think Niti Aayog also had a report on this. We don't have much of data. With the satellite, of course, we cannot cover everything. But as a startup, we are trying to bring what all we can do and map every 10 meter by 10 meter across India outside India also, what is happening in terms of the crop, in terms of risk for lending, the input and the output management. So all these things we are trying to cover from our side, how we can mitigate the data drought. And when we look at other technologies like IoT sensor, etc., sometimes they are too costly for the large number of small and marginal farmer in India. We feel satellite remote sensing is quite affordable, and we can reach large number of farmer and provide the solutions to large land parcel in India. Then third, very important point is about the sustainability. Like Professor Ramesh sir mentioned in the beginning, agriculture uses more than 80%, maybe up to 90% water, and efficiencies are very low. Sometimes we get less than 30% efficiency. So we need to look for technologies, how we can manage the water resources. I'll not go into other issues due to shortage of time like fertilizer and pesticide. But in the water, typically we are more into the supply side management. You need water, build more dam, build more canal, etc. Even though there is no water in that, we need to shift from the supply side management to demand side manage, and we need to tell farmer with the help of technology how much water is sufficient to drop the good amount of crop, how they can grow more crop per drop with the help of the technology, rather than bringing more and more water. So with this, I summarize. This is what my learning, and it was very good session to learn from
Yes,
different.
Sat, if you can just take 1 minute, maybe 30-60 seconds to see as a startup entrepreneur, what are the incentives, SOPs and support you're looking for the state and central government? Is there something specific on your mind?
Yes, sir. I mean, how we can work with the agriculture department, agriculture universities, because there are many common things we are doing, and it's very difficult to reach. Maybe at individual level, you can reach one department, one scientist, or one agriculture officer. But to scale it up, there has to be some system where we can work with them. So this has to be systemized. And then how we can be part of the agriculture. There are many programs where we can add the value. Let's say they are doing soil health card, where we can add the value. There may be other startup, let's say for agriculture lending, where we can add the value. So how we can work with the government and to take the solutions to the farmer. So these are the broadly 2-3 things. One on the satellite remote sensing data part, like ISRO provides lots of satellite data, but currently it's not allowed to use for the commercial purpose. So ISRO headquarters just hardly walk away from our office, but we cannot use their data, though I know many scientists personally. So if this data can be allowed with whatever prices they have, where a startup can use and this can leverage, I think it will add a lot of value for the entire agriculture ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks, Sat. I know you're using European satellites and the services, but yes, I think agri-tech startups have a lot of pain points. Thanks for pointing out. I think the solution lies in the PPP mode. We truly should follow the letter and spirit of public-private partnership. I think that will resolve a lot of problems for agri-tech startups. Thanks, Sat. I believe satellite imaging is a game changer and the most important technology that can solve a lot of structural issues which otherwise are not solvable. Thank you, Sat. Now, I would like to call upon, is Krishnaji there? If Krishnaji is there, I'd like to hear his views before we open it for Q&A. Naval, does that make sense?
Yeah, Raviji, I think he's dropped off. So
dropped off, okay. So Srihari, over to you. We can do a Q&A if any, because I tried to answer some very simple one-liner answers. If there are any questions and answers, we can open it now. Then I'll hand it over to Srihari and Naval to take it over from here. Thank you.
Yes. I think if anyone has any question, you can raise your hand. So, yeah, I think Sudha Jayakrishnan ma'am has a question. Do we have an opportunity to educate our FPOs to be part of the value chain and think beyond produce?
Yeah, certainly. I think there are a lot of opportunities, and we also welcome. We are now trying to build a digital platform wherein we try to bring in the startups which are working in the entire agri tech sector. The efforts are on, and in case they have any specific offerings, we can definitely invite them and then try to link them with a set of FPOs which are working in that direction. Yes, there is an opportunity.
Rupendra Sharma ji, you had raised your hand. Was it recently or something you want to talk about? Can we enable Rupendra Sharma ji to talk, or maybe you can send it through chat. Anyone else?
So Srihari, I have a question for the panel members while people will put it on the chat. On behalf of the finance community, maybe I would like to have a quick answer from all of them because they have different background. What are the points where you see the finance community, finance professionals community like chartered accountants, company secretaries, cost accountants, they can add value into the whole thing that we are trying to create here? Maybe Sat, you can answer it first, and then I'll request others also.
Yes, sir. What's the specific question, sir?
His question was how I can take it on your behalf, Naval, since I'm not a CA. So Naval's point was how finance professionals can get involved. It could be chartered accountants, it could be business analysts, it could be financial assistants. How can they be involved with agri-tech startups specifically? Of course, don't without on a lighter vein, cooking the books. But for that, what do you think in other ways they can help? Yeah.
No, but I'll bring this before I go into CA part, like we were discussing many times in agriculture startup, we don't have agriculture expert. So let's say we are the startup who are trying to be agriculture expert, but it's difficult to have all the skills in-house. I cannot have people from finance also, from other domains also. It's very, very difficult to do it. So what happens when I talk to CA for my normal things, for them, my service is similar to, somebody selling biscuit or somebody selling something else. So I think there is a learning both way. It can help each other, what we can do as a startup, which can help us manage things efficiently in the finance, etc., those kind of things. And what the CA can learn, how it's different from a normal SME company, so that kind of companies. So I think both way learning can happen in this space.
Great, Sat. I'll like to add to what Sat told. Now, see, the thing is, most I don't want to generalize and paint everybody the same brush, but most agri-tech entrepreneurs, they lack the financial savviness. When I say financial savviness, it will straddle from something like bookkeeping to GST filing to regulatory compliance to all the way to fundraising. I feel that both tactically and strategically, finance professionals have a great role to play. By the same token of the measure, there are very few. Let me take example of chartered accountants who understand what is agri-business, for example. Right? So most of the income from agri-business is tax exempt. But again, there's a finer print, right? And that today is being done by the agri-tech entrepreneur who should focus on the core solution. So I think it's a two-way traffic, but I'm sure it's a very strategic role. At the same time, it can span right from bookkeeping to all the way to strategic fundraising, including GST compliance, regulatory, accessing funds, debt, equity, structuring the cap table, etc., etc. There's a huge role to be played by the financial professionals, but it's a learning curve at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with you, Raviji. And in fact, I would like to invite a brief comment from Emmanuel also, considering that he's into debt financing. So normally, when you talk about banks and NBFCs, they have clear-cut laid down criteria on how they will evaluate, and that is where the chartered accountants and other finance professionals are also involved. But what is it something different for agri-tech? Maybe it would be very interesting for the audience.
Right. So thank you so much, Navalji. Very important point. First thing we see is that most startups do not have chartered accountants manning their accounts department, and that shows up in the quality of the financial statements that are produced. Second, I think almost all of them have scant understanding of non-compliance. And every compliance, right from even weights and measures to GST to TDS, so many deficiencies that we see even in PE and VC funded firms, which are neglected. And as a lender, we unfortunately cannot enter into a company unless it straightens up all these things. So we, for example, do straight away a check between GST and their accounts, GST returns and their accounts, whether the numbers are matching. Rarely do. Of course, there could be a 10-20% discrepancy. Then we do a cash bank statement analysis. For example, checks bounced. by even if their by a vendor to whom they have given is bouncing checks. It shows that there is a risk on us if his collections are poor. So these are issues. Unfortunately, early stage entrepreneurs are wearing multiple hats, pay little attention. VC funders are in their own world, looking for something else. A huge gap, even in large, well-funded startups. We need many more professional chartered accountants to enter in this space, even as a service to provide. Many times internal audit and external audit done by the same guy. These are friends and others who are doing these audits. It's okay as long as you don't have external capital. Once you do that, we insist that you have a chartered accountant who is professional. You have also on the board somebody who understands this stuff as an independent director. These are conditions we put in before we put our money on these.
Nicely articulated, Emmanuel. I think this is a tip of the iceberg, and I couldn't underscore the importance of financial discipline. Even Professor Changappa brought out one other related issue, which is, the valuation part itself, which is, one big thing, right? Besides running the business, how do you evaluate? So a lot of gray areas there, which the finance professionals can kind of jump in and plug the gap, so to speak. I saw there's a question on FPO. Dr. Alur, is he there? Sir, can you take that question on FPO?
Yeah, 1 second, sir. I'll just have a look at it.
Ravi, can I just add to the
Sure.
CA part?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So one small point, which I'm sure that you all will be agreeing on, is that, CAs can definitely work alongside the bankers in order to develop some innovative financial products, which are more focused on areas like cash flow trapping, which becomes, which is more startup friendly. Current banking products, although it is there, but it's not sufficient for all the startups. So that's where I believe that CA professionals can also support the startup ecosystem. And a lot of CAs would appreciate, lot of startups would appreciate that in an early stage, if they can get such kind of products, which basically are based on the cash flow, it will be a huge help to them.
Absolutely, Ajay. I think venture debt could offer that, but it needs to be customized at the end of the day to agri-tech startups, right?
That's
so,
right.
Yeah, that customization has to happen. But I think somebody like Emmanuel is right up the street there in terms of what he's doing.
Every loan of ours is cash flow linked and customized.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the mainstream banking. I think that's where the change needs to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, good point, Ajay. Yeah.
Thanks. So, Professor Alur, you want to go?
Yeah, I think, I have two things to make.
Upendra Sharma, had raised the question.
Yeah. This is basically, with regard to the role of chartered accountants. Definitely, see, when we look at the entire FPO sector, the role of CAs is very, very important. Since the farmers do not come from any financial background or management background, they need a lot of hand-holding in the early stages, basically with regard to promoting healthy financial practices, creating a lot of awareness among them about legal compliances, and then, overall building a proper budget for their proposals, then, promoting the financial discipline among them right from day one. All this can be, designed and directed by the CAs.
Yeah.
So we are actually trying to have, even at the state level, we are discussing about it. And there are a lot of discrepancies between the professional charges that are charged by the, chartered accountants. So in that regard, we would like to have a panel of, chartered accountants in different districts in the state of Karnataka. And then FPOs can be directed to go and, approach them and take their services. So I think there's a great role for them to play.
That's a wonderful initiative, Professor. And there was one question on FPO MOUs. If you want to answer that,
Yeah. So there is one question, for FPOs, is there any policy issue if we are signing an MOU for a complete procedure and sale of produce? Definitely, and there is no such, policy stumbling point there. It's basically the agreement should be between you and the board of directors. So you can definitely have an activity-based MOU, or specifically described, point what is that you are going to offer them, and then you can definitely have an MOU signed with the FQ. And if you have anything more, more clarity from my side, you can kindly speak and then raise that.
I think that's good enough, Professor Ashok. Thanks. So I think we are way beyond Srihari. Naval, you want to propose, you want to close this and request Srihari for a vote of thanks, Naval?
Yeah, vote of thanks will be given by Srihari, but I just wanted to inform Professor Ashok that 15,000 plus connection with the finance professionals. We can certainly help you in that empanelment and the benchmarking of fees piece.
Sure, Navalji. We'll have a
we'll work together. Yeah, we'll coordinate and work to take us.
Yeah.
Actionable next step. Good point, Naval. As always.
Yeah, over to you, Srihari.
Being a practicing CA myself, I was very happy listening to, understanding that there still is a lot of opportunity in the startup space. So thank you for whoever validated that. So the vote of thanks, I also big thanks to our chief guest of the day, Shri Ramesh Chandji, and all the panelists who, on a Saturday evening, nobody generally accepts the offer to speak because it's a weekend and all those things. So thanks to everyone. And more than that, I would thank all those who are present in the audience who have been very patient for the last approximately 2 hours. I think all of us have done a good job in speaking and noting down and understanding and learning. At the same time, audience have been extremely lively and so many doubts. Even now, I think Sudha ma'am is thanking everyone. So with that, on behalf of BVSS or on my behalf, I thank the panelists as well as the audience. Look forward to more and more webinars like this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Naval, Srihari. Thanks you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, the recording will be available on the YouTube channel, just in case anyone wants to refer to anything else.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend, all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.